Good evening, everyone. I think that I can see them now. Fantastic. Okay, folks, so share with your friends. Our guests are here now. Just waiting for them to be on screen. Fantastic. Wow, this is lovely.
There too?
No, it's not there. So
Okay,
we'll just use
then.
the one.
Okay,
Thank you, Reverend.
welcome, James and Chao. I am really very glad to have you here with me.
Okay.
Okay, everyone who's able to join us, our guests are here. So please invite your friends. I'm going to take a few moments to invite some more people to join us as well. And then we'll get started. Just give me a few moments. All right, I think we can start now. Okay, so good evening, everybody. Welcome to this Facebook Live event. My name is Modupe Ehirim. I'm the founder of the Right Fit Marriage Academy. And for those of you who already follow me, you know that if there's one thing I'm very passionate about, it's marriage. And it's my desire, especially, that the young people who are just coming up, who want to get married, will not trip over the hurdles that those of us who went ahead of them tripped over. The couple that I have with me today, James and Chao, they are Kenyans. They are equally passionate like me. They've been married for 20 years. And, they've been doing premarital counseling for young people for the last 10 years. They've also been very actively involved with the work of the churches in Kenya to ensure that young people actually go into marriage. Welcome, James and Chao. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. We're going to be looking at your book, Getting Married, Building Your Marriage Before It Begins. And the reason that I've brought you on this evening is because here in my own country, Nigeria, many young couples find it difficult to pay for professional pre-marriage counseling services, and your book that I have gone through is a tool that if we can place in their hands, we probably would have solved 50 to 70% of the problem. So you and I were going to be talking about the book today, and then when we are done, we're going to tell my audience that where they can get the book in Nigeria, because the book is now available in Nigeria. So welcome. I'd like you to tell me about yourselves and what inspired you to write the book, Getting Married, Building Your Marriage Before It Begins.
Well, thank you for allowing us to be on this with you. My name is James, and my beautiful wife is Chao, as you've said, and we'll be married over 27 years by next year. Yes, and we have enjoyed being together. We have two boys. One is 23 and one is becoming 22.
He's just about to turn 21.
21, I'm sorry. Yeah, 23, one is coming 21.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so we have two boys. They're grown-up boys. They are on their own.
Yes, that's correct. So what inspired us to write the book? You have said it so well that, number one, when we were preparing to get married, we did not have an environment where we could build our marriage before we started. And given the hurdles that we went through, we really believe that nobody needed to go through what we went through. And so as the Lord allowed us to build our marriage and learn from not only our marriage, but from other marriages, we agreed this is a tool that is not only needed, but also needed in the context of the African culture.
And another thing is that, the problem is for those who are in church, the leaders, they think that we know it all because we've been in church, we are serving, and that's the problem. So they thought that we were good to go because we've been involved in the ministry in church, and they didn't know that we needed to have somebody to walk with us. They thought James and Chow are serving, they're leading Bible studies, they're doing all these things. So for them, let's get them married, they're good to go. And that was a mistake many people are doing today.
Yeah, and yeah, we forget that.
Go ahead, Chow.
I was going to say, we forget that, when you go to school, you study and then you get tested and you're given a grade. But when it comes to marriage, you're actually given a grade before you're tested. And so we begin with an A+. But now how you keep that, it really has a lot of other issues that you need to factor in.
So that's how we started.
It's interesting that you said about, being workers in the church and people assuming that you already know a lot of things. It's the one reason I started the Right Fit Marriage Academy as well, because I volunteered in church as a counselor. And at that time, I think I was already married for about 20 something years as well. And I just was amazed at a lot of practical things that people in church were not aware of. So they knew the scriptures, but then when it comes to the day-to-day, how do you really live with one another and what should you prepare for? Most people did not have so much knowledge. So in the blurb of your book at the back, you mentioned being tempted to throw in the towel shortly after you got married. Tell us more about that period and how you overcame it.
How many examples do you need?
Give us one or two.
She's the one who said throwing the towel, but maybe it was not me. So she needs to say why, so people can learn from that.
Well, one thing that we took for granted was the fact that we come from two different backgrounds. We were not raised by the same parents. We all came from very different backgrounds and came together. And everybody should know that when you have two very diverse people or things coming together, there's going to be a clash. And the beginning for us is actually, if you can believe this, it had to do with working in the church. James was raised in the church. I mean, he lived, breathed, slept, woke up, and most of the things that they did was in the church. And so when we got married, he still was running with the church. And so it got to a point
which was good.
I mean, it was very good.
Yeah.
The challenge was we did not have that balance of prioritizing. It's good to serve in the church. It's best to serve the Lord, and then he can give you the priorities that you need to follow. And definitely, second to building yourself as a child of God, it should be building your marriage. And so we clashed in the sense that James was doing a good thing, which was serving the church. I wanted to do a good thing, which was build our marriage. But the way I communicated with him, it did not help either. Because I was was it a dripping roof that kept whining all the time. And before we knew it, we just clashed.
And that is because we did not get someone to help us on that journey. So that's where we were.
That's correct.
I like how very practical you folks are, because one chief thing that I tell people always when we're talking, even for older couples who did not have premarital counseling, is to say to them that even though marriage appears to have a universal definition, there are actually as many definitions of marriage as there are human beings. And that definition is defined by where you're coming from, the marriages that you have seen. You have in your mind a way that things should be done. And then you now meet this person who also wants a different path from you and has a way in their own mind. And if both of you never consciously sit down to say, okay, now that we're coming together, what will be our way? Then every day in your life will be, why is it not my way? Why should it be your way? And so on and so forth. Fantastic. So, share with us, what would you say are the key principles or strategies that you shared in your book, Getting Married, Building Your Marriage Before It Begins?
Yes. Well, do you want me to start or do you
Yeah,
want to start?
the expectation.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, and
And
that's one of the very key ones, which is what we were lacking, because you
yes,
came with your expectations, I came with mine, but we did
exactly.
not discuss them. So you
We
had your
we didn't have
assumptions,
the
I had
platform
mine.
to discuss them.
That's right.
So I had my own expectation. If we're looking for a wife, she did have her own expectation. Now we didn't have a place to talk about those expectations.
And so that's the first thing that we discussed, expectations. And then number two, we talk about why marriage. Why do we get married? Why should we get married?
Yeah.
And I mean, the response could be as diverse as, like you said, different couples. But really, we had to go back to the source, which is the Bible, to find out what does God say about marriage. And especially given our African culture, where rightfully so, we are taught about marriage. We are taught about procreation. We are taught about keeping the family name, which is wonderful. And yet, really, is that the reason we get married? And so we discussed that, why marriage. And then we also talk about conflict, communication, even through conflict. My husband and I, we talk about conflict is as inevitable as breathing air in and out. I mean, and so we talk about conflict. There's nothing wrong with conflict. What is wrong or could be wrong is how you resolve them. And we have come to a place where we are agreeing now that conflict is an opportunity waiting for growth. That's right.
And then we just say in marriage means conflict, as we say from the beginning, that we've come from different backgrounds. So already that's a conflict coming, but we take that opportunity now for growth in our marriage.
That's right. And then we also talk about roles and responsibilities. We forget that there's one aspect of you have a role, like when you're employed, you're given a title, but there's also the job description. So much as you may know your role, but what are your responsibilities? Both, he has a role, but he has a responsibility toward me. He has a responsibility toward God. He has a responsibility toward himself. And so we discuss those things. And then, of course, we discuss one of your favorite subjects.
Sex and marriage? Yeah, which is very important.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Sexual intimacy, especially when it comes to our cultures where some of these things are considered taboo. You not really talk about them openly. And we found out so many people are suffering not because there's no information out there, but because they're afraid to look for information. Because especially the older people like us, we are not as open to have those conversations. Yes. And then a principle that we do not want to forget toward the end, actually two more, is that, where is God in your marriage? And then after that is what next? As you build your marriage, remember you're building a legacy that should outlive you. And how should that look like?
That your closing statement is the reason I actually do marriage education and counseling. I tell people that the couples are happy as a byproduct of the work that I do, but it is the realization that if a child grows up in a home where the parents don't understand marriage and are not doing marriage right, then that's what the child is going to know. And we will not see that until the child himself or herself gets married. And so, we keep recycling. Why? Because people are nurtured in homes where things are not known. They grow up to become adults who don't know things, and then they go on. And, you made a really important point, which is that just choosing to get married means that you have chosen to enter conflict.
Exactly.
And that's the critical thing for us in Africa, because we're very conflict averse people. We like to have the appearance that everything is okay. And I think one of the skills that we don't often acquire as we're growing up is how to live with somebody who thinks differently from us, or who sees life differently from us.
Yes.
One of the things you did in your book is that it was like you were role playing a couple that was going through counseling. So I'd like you to share with us, one specific story from the book, that highlights one of these principles in action? If you can, because you didn't mention money, and I'm sure that that was just an omission. As if in my language, you say money is the bicycle that evangelism rides on. I think we can say the same for marriage. You know, there are many things that couples come to you about, and they say a lot of things. And when you lift the curtain and you begin to look behind the scene, you'd actually discover that there is not enough money to cover the bills. That's what the issues are. So, you know, share with us a story from your book.
So do you mean a story about money or just any of the stories?
Any of the stories that you want, you know, just choose one of them to give our audience some insight into what they can see in the book.
Okay. Do you want to start?
Well, the story that about money is that, you know, again, it comes, I started working and it was my money, using money the way I want. And I didn't have limits on buying things. So when I got married, the challenge was that I forgot that I'm married. And I will give anybody money who comes in as a challenge. I will give money without even asking my wife that, can we do this? And that was a big, big challenge in our marriage, because I didn't want to work with a budget. I thought that is my friend asking me for money, I will give him. Is my friend they want me to sign in some dotted line for him to get a loan, I will do it without even asking my wife. And actually that put us in a very big problem in our marriage.
Yeah, initially. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
We could tell you so many stories.
Because we were planning a story, a two-story, planning to buy a home, and then we went now dotted line. They found that I had consigned somebody's to buy something and he didn't pay. He didn't pay at all. And then that now came out that we could not qualify for money to buy a house, and you can see how that now messed up our marriage.
Yes. But you know, I thank God that much as we lost that, and there are a lot of repercussions, I can thank God that we did not lose our marriage. Because at the end of the day, when you think about material things, they come and go. But this relationship, when we said until death do us part, we do everything we know how by the power of God, and we are able to move forward. So it's true. We had challenges on just agreeing about how to spend money. And another example that we can pull out from the book also, we mentioned expectations. And some of the examples we give, actually the examples that we give, except for the key couple, Jabali and Karembo, they're the examples of life people that we have worked with. And one of the couples that, when we love them, we still hang out with them even today. When they're courting, she was solely responsible for the upkeep of her family. And so every time she got a check, it was split between what was needed in her home, and then whatever was left was what she could spend when she was away from home. Well, when they got married, they did not discuss that expectation. And so guess what? The parents still expected her to support them. And here is a husband that you need to begin to plan with. And from the very beginning, it brought so much conflict that even and tension that he was just about to throw in the towel, and she was about to throw in the towel because she felt like he was not supporting her family. But it really that they did not have those conversations, and thankfully they sat down and had those conversations. We are not saying that everything has been resolved, because also it's dependent also on how your parents respond to it. But we're thankful that they are speaking the same language from the same script as they move forward. Yes.
You know, I like the stories that you shared because they highlight something which you and me have said again and again in this program, but which many young people who are approaching marriage are not aware of. Our lives before we came to meet our partner and want to get married are so different that when we come together, discussing, you know, I think most people approach the conversation as, let me know whether you're safe for me, which has some benefits. But what you're saying from your book and from what you shared with us today is that approach it from the perspective of we've already decided to go together. How are we going to go together, given that how you think and how I think are different? We need to come to a place of deciding how are we going to think. And that's what premarital counseling or pre-marriage preparation, which is what I call it, because here in Nigeria, if you mention premarital counseling, especially if it has to do with church, people think you just want to browbeat the woman and make her to,
To be
submit
submissive.
and not have a mind of her own, again. So thank you for these stories. I think what is also beautiful about what you have shared, because it's interesting that you had these experiences with money, and I had similar experiences also with money. And what is beautiful is that even though you had these issues in the beginning, you still figured your way out, and you have now been married for 27 years, and I have been married for 39 years. So essentially, folks in the audience, part of what we're saying to you is that what you experience, especially if you don't do pre-marriage preparation, what you experience in the first year of your marriage is not a symptom that you are wrong for one another. It's a symptom that the conversations that you needed to have had, the deep conversations about your expectations, about your perspective on life that you should have had, which you did not have, is what is showing up. And the remedy is to have those conversations. I always say to married couples that, if you are having trouble in your marriage and I ask you, did you do pre-marriage preparation? And they say no. I say, very good. Even people who are already married can still do pre-marriage preparation.
Oh, yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about it.
That is our story, Modupe, because James and I, when we got to our third year of marriage, going into our fourth one, we were tired. And and no, we did not. The deal word never existed in our lips. But maybe somebody thought it, I don't know. But the whole point being, we were just like, man, you mean this is what marriage is all about? We didn't feel like there was life in the marriage. You can be married for so many years and not necessarily enjoy your marriage. You just endure it. And we did not want to endure our marriage. And I remember getting so upset with my husband about something. And what we used to do is, this is how we fought. Because James grew up very differently from me. When a conflict arose, he would just, everything was tucked under the carpet, and you guys would just move on and pray over it and keep going. My family, we are very good at, we have to resolve any conflict.
Now.
And so James was busy taking his space, and I was busy running after him to tell him, we need to talk about it. And then when I felt like he didn't want to talk, I started, giving him the silence. And I remember one day, and this is the beginning of our preparing for marriage, I really believe. James called me and he said, sit down, let's have a conversation. And he said, I've never been married before. Neither have you been married before. Can we learn together? For us, that was the beginning of a wonderful, the rest of our lives kind of thing. Yes.
Thank you so very much, for sharing that. For the gentlemen here that are listening, if, just hear what Chow told us James said. He came to his wife and said, I've not been married before, so this is new to me, just as it is to you. Can we learn together? And that marked the turning point. You'd be amazed at what that kind of a statement, even if it is the wife who goes to the husband and says, you know what, all this heartbreak we're having, see, you've not been married before, I've not been married before, let's start afresh as though we're just missing one another, and then learn what we can do. So James and Chow, if a couple was sitting in our audience now, and they've already made the decision, we want to get married, what advice do you have for them?
Well, first thing I'll ask them to buy the book.
Exactly.
Yeah, building your
Exactly.
marriage before it begins.
Yes.
That is the beginning. That's the first. And I'll tell you, that's the first thing to do. But they need to be ready to
Prepare.
prepare. They need to go for marriage preparation.
That's right.
That is very important.
That's right.
And then with that, they need to have a mentor who will be working with them. You can read a book, it's great, but do you have somebody like what we do with Chow? We work with couples, and then I have one-on-one with the man himself, and Chow will have one-on-one with the lady by themselves. Then we come together, we continue like that. And that's not how we have done with our preparation for marriage for couples.
Yes. Yeah, so we will definitely congratulate them for making that decision. Marriage is a good thing. Yeah. And then definitely we would encourage them to prepare for it. You know, I have talked to friends who have gone through divorce, and they will tell you that it's better not to be married than to be married and then to be in a bad marriage where now it's failing. Now we have to be very careful. Actually, even the comment we made before when James said, I've not been married before, you've not been married before, can we start again? I would like to speak to your audience. Maybe there's someone who's been divorced and now they are preparing to get married, you know, to somebody else. The same thing goes with them in the sense that they've never been married to that person before. And so it still is, you need to build your marriage before you begin.
Wow. Thank you very much. You know, I'd like you to, I want to share a Nigerian thought with you, and I'd like you to tell me whether it's the same for the Kenyans as well. So, you know, in the past, in the times of our grandparents, when they wanted to get married, they chose somebody from the community that they were growing up in. So, you know, the parents probably knew the parents of the person they wanted to marry, the grandparents, you know, and so on and so forth. But in Nigeria today, even if you're marrying someone from your village, chances that you both were born in separate cities and you went to different schools and you're probably even living on different continents now. Is that also your experience in Kenya? And what advice, you know, because so people, we have, you know, some people will say, oh, but our grandparents didn't have to do all of this marriage school and didn't have to do all of this marriage education. And my response to them is what I just shared with you. Our parents chose in safety. Safety in the sense that whoever they chose had similar experiences in life with them, had, you know, grew up in a community that had the same perspectives and understanding about marriage. But in today's world, I mean, I have a young lady who was born in Nigeria and went to school in Nigeria and has already lived in 5 continents. Now, if she wants to marry a Nigerian, that person is going to be thinking, I'm marrying a Nigerian. But are they really marrying a Nigerian?
It's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah. And for me, I want to agree with you about something. Traditionally, our parents really, they grew up learning about marriage and preparing for marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And now our priorities are different. I mean, I remember my own grandmother and my aunties telling me about how their aunties, they would go to their homes and they would teach them about marriage. And they would, you know, and in our African culture, and I believe it would be the same with Nigeria, you don't necessarily teach by telling, you teach by showing. And nowadays, because like you just said, proximity, people are so far away from each other, it becomes very different. And not only that, we have access to so many other cultures that is easy for us to begin to borrow from others. So this thing of the African culture can be quite relative. James and myself, we are from the same country. We are actually from the same region of the country, which is on the coastal region. Of course, we didn't know that until when we met. And we met in the States and we got married in the States. And so we did not even have family members who are close enough to really do the background check and all that, though we did our due diligence. But one thing we did was we asked our, especially parents and relatives, to also help us out in this is what we have decided about, what do you think? And our family members got to know each other, just to visit with each other, so that they can really see who is this woman, where is she coming from? And they could say the same about my family would go, who is this man and where is he coming from and what kind of people are these. So you take advantage of what you have, but at the end of the day, yeah, we have the responsibility to do a lot more due diligence than our parents did because they were so close together in the community.
And looking into our parents, the culture that we are from, the bride will have some time with the aunties. They are very close and they will walk with them. The same way with a young man, the uncles are there to teach, and he'll have those discussions with the uncles and the bride with their aunties. And that one way that it did help them to be who they are and how they walked into that journey of marriage.
That's right. And even now, what we can give counsel to young people is wherever you are at, believe God for even an older couple who share the values that you hold. And, you know, hold on to them. I mean, James and I, we have children who we didn't carry, but we nurture them like they're our own because we are the closest that they have to a parent. And so they learn about marriage from us. And of course, the biggest culture they pick up is number one, the Christian culture, which is the core foundation. And then as we move forward, we remind each other there's some wonderful values for the African that you need to also nurture in your marriage. Yes.
And what we do actually, most of those that we take them through premarital counseling, we still work with them even now. Most of them. We still connect with them. We still do life with them. And we now train them how they can, even them mentor other young couples who want to get married. So we have a big number that we do. We come together, we do seminars, like-minded.
Yeah, we become the new village.
The new village,
yes.
And we do that. And that has been an awesome and help us even to grow in our marriage too.
Thank you very, very much, because essentially you are building a picture for us that marriage cannot be done in isolation. I was going to ask you, what role do mentors play in building a strong marriage? But you've already answered that. Many people are afraid, you know, to go outside of their family of origin to ask for counsel and to ask for support, largely because they've been taught that you should not allow third parties into your marriage. But one thing that I said to people is that if you are married and you're confronted with issues that your family members, family of origin cannot deal with, you'd be foolish to not go and look. The only thing is you need to be sensible in looking for people to counsel you, and that is why part of your pre-marriage preparation program should be to look for a couple who you admire and who you actually also have literally interviewed to see the perspectives that they have about life, so that when you're going in your marriage, you would have these older couples who are, you won't just choose them carelessly just because they're married. You'd be choosing them because they're people that you believe that, okay, if I walk the path that they're walking, or if I take advice from them, then I would not be lost. Thank you so very much for sharing this. I want to ask this question, you know, because there'll be some people listening to us now and they'll say, I wish I had about this book before I got married, but I'm already married. What would you say to such people?
They're actually one of the perfect candidates for walking through this. It's never too late to begin. It's never too late to build. And you actually can gain more because now you have experience to pull from, so that you can, it's almost like having a case study of yourself. And as you do that, then you're able to build on it. And so, yeah, the time is right and the time is now, and they should not stop beginning to build their marriage.
Because that's then kind of where we were ourselves, because we already get married, and then we went through some materials about getting married. And from that, what we learned, we went and started helping other couples all the way until we're able to write this book.
Okay. So folks, you are hearing, if you're already married, You can also get this book. See, here is the book. Getting Married, Building Your Marriage Before It Starts. And I'm very happy to tell you that the book is available in Nigeria. You can get it in Lagos, Robin Heights bookstores. It's in the comments, and I'm going to put it in the post that is accompanying this book. And if you're from Kenya and you're listening to us, you can also get it. The names of the bookstores that you can get the book in, you can, and if you look for the book and you can't get it, I know the publisher. So if you contact me, I would let you know. Who are the people that we want to get this book? Number one, if you are single and you haven't even got a partner yet, this is the best time for you to read the book. Because by the time you read the book, and whether you're a man or you're a woman, when you meet a possible person to marry, it will give you the boldness and the courage to have all of the conversations that you need to have. That's the first thing. And it would give you wisdom for you to discern whether this person is a fit for you. I usually say to young people, if you bring up the subject of pre-marriage preparation and your potential partner is resistant to it, you want to ask yourself, what's this telling me about this person? Because if they are resistant, then when you get into marriage, will they be open to learning? So if you are single, this book is for you. Now, the second group of people who are to read this book are people who have already made a commitment to marry one another. Yes. It would really be very, very great for you, because it will help you to understand the behind the scenes work that both of you need to do to begin to come on the same page. I usually say that marriage is like the three-legged race that we run in primary school. When your two inner legs are tied together, you can't go as fast as you want to go, because you have to now manage the speed of the person that you're joined to. And this book will help you and your partner in that three-legged race to come to an understanding of the speed that both of you will travel in marriage. The third set of people that we want to read this book are people who are already married, but who did not have any form of pre-marriage preparation. You've had James and Chow tell us they were in your situation. So if they did it, you also can do it. And for many of us older people, that actually was what happened. If you find couples who are happily married for 20, 30, 40 years, after the first couple of years of struggling, they sat themselves down and said, we don't know what this is about, let's go and learn. And as they were learning and implementing, that's how they arrived at 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. The last set of people that we want to get this book, is everybody who thinks marriage is a good thing. Because, other people may not read the book, but a lot of people miss their way because of the advice that they get given. And so if you're an older person, if you read this book, it means that you have good quality advice to give to the younger people who come to talk to you. If you are somebody who reads this book, it means that when your colleague is griping about their marriage in the office, you have good advice. So really, everybody should read this book. If you are a pastor, or you are having a marriage counseling ministry in church and you are the one heading it, please get this book. Part of the reason why I'm recommending it very passionately is that sometimes we have challenges with some books. The principles are good, but when you start looking at the local culture and tradition, we struggle with some things. This one, the very first exercise in it that you are going to do is called, the first one is personal history data. The second one is couples interview. The third one is parents interview. The way that you are going to interview with your parents to gather information from them without, them being antagonistic and everything. Yes, so the book is available, as I said, in Lagos and Abuja. It is also available in Nairobi. And if you are not in any of these two locations and you want it, contact me and I would let you know how you can get it. So James and Chao, after 27 years of life together in marriage, what do you both consider to be the most crucial elements for maintaining a healthy relationship?
What I can say, what has helped us, first of thing is praying together. Prayer, that has been key.
That's true.
Yeah. And then investing in our marriage. What am I saying? Investing in our marriage is that, we have seen and we've been part of ministry of churches where there is only one couple's dinner in a year. They come together and one speaker speaks and then till end of the year again. That won't build your marriage. Invest means that look for like-minded couples. Sit together, start studying about marriages together. Let it be a discipleship kind of Bible study. And there are books that are there that you can talk about money, communication, conflict, and everything that is there in marriage. So take that and invest as a group, start studying together. That's what was the thing that has helped us in our marriage.
That's true. And for the couple who is blessed with children, our advice is do not allow your children to ruin your marriage. Especially mothers, we're guilty of that. We love on our husbands and then the children come and we shift their attention. We can tell you now that we are what they call the empty nesters, which I don't think that's a good word. But anyway, we started the two of us and now it's the two of us.
The season changes.
Seasons change, yes. Yeah. And so that's the other thing that we have learned. Marriage is also lived in seasons. Embrace the season. Before you have children, it's a different season from when the children come. When you're raising children, it's different. When you're beginning your careers, it's different. So embrace the seasons with everything that it comes with it, knowing that nothing lasts forever. And then finally, just remember also, marriage is the ministry to God. And it's a ministry to the other person. And so before you choose to impact anybody else, you actually have the privilege to impact the person that's sitting next to you, the person who sleeps right next to you. So take advantage and make God smile by doing that. And then finally, remember, marriage is spelled W-O-R-K. Marriage is spelled work. So work on it.
And what I can finish by saying is that your marriage should reflect Christ's image. The love of Christ in us should draw others to come and to know Christ. So if your marriage does not reflect Christ's image, you ask yourself why. What you need to be, because people should come to Christ because of seeing the love that we have that reflects Christ's image in our marriage.
Right.
And that should be able to draw others. Say, there's something I've seen, and that one way of sharing Christ is through your marriage.
That's right.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I'd like you to share with us, what are some daily or weekly practices, that you recommend? So I'll give you one as an example. So every morning, I like, when my husband is going out, just to walk with him to the door. And it's amazing. We may not hold hands or things like that, but it's just something that we both have become used to. And it gives us a feeling of, we are together. So what are some weekly or daily practices that you do and which you would like to share with us and maybe other people can learn from it?
Okay. Number one, even before we speak of the specifics, we have agreed that our marriage is our marriage. We are building our own culture. We're not trying to compare ourselves with anybody. It's good to get ideas from others, but we're not trying to copy anyone. So we're here to just focus on the two of us. That's really important, because we get to a place where we want to be like the person next door. The grass is always greener on the other side. Stop that. It will just ruin everything and make you miserable. And then the things that we do on a regular basis, like Jim said, really, seriously, prayer changes things. So we are very intentional about, even if it's praying for 2 minutes, it makes a difference. The other thing is we try to build companionship by doing something that we both enjoy doing. And even if we both don't, we teach each other something, because he's always going to be different from me. There's some things that I really enjoy doing that may not necessarily be some things that he likes to do, but we like to teach each other, you know, and so be open to learning from the other person.
Mm-hmm. One thing that we do that is people can do, we walk early in the morning. We'll take a walk together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we make a habit that we will go out, we walk in the morning. After getting together, praying, we'll go do exercising, we'll walk together, and we'll discuss, we'll talk, and then we'll come back home and start our day.
And finally, do not stop dating each other. If anything, you need
Yeah.
to do more of it.
We have coffee dates.
Yes.
We have coffee dates.
Yes.
We decide, yeah, I'll go for a coffee date and do all that.
And it's not so much about where you go. It's about the fact that you're going and you're both enjoying each other's company.
Yeah, and doing things together, maybe even like what we do, we go watch our boys playing football.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we'll go together, we sit together, we enjoy the opportunity to be together and watching something that interests all of us, and that has built us even more and more together.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, there is probably one man or one woman listening to us today, and you know, they're listening and they say, oh, this is so beautiful, but no matter what I do, my partner won't come with me on this journey of studying, you know, of I'm going to get this book, but I mean, if I read it and he doesn't read it or she doesn't read it, is it going to help us? What do you have to say to that person?
You know, I'm really glad you brought that up, because it's true. You can be all well intended and the other person just chooses not to join up. And one thing that James and we continue to learn is there's something about, you know, we are married, the two have become one, but I also have my life in the sense that I'm a child of God, independent of him. And so even when we're having trouble, like we say, the Bible talking about the joy of the Lord is my strength, that I should be able to build intimacy with him, whether James is in agreement with it or not. Okay. And then the second thing is, yes, many times we get to those places and we don't talk about it. And that brings us back to the power of having a mentor, that you can go to that person, especially when you have mentorship from the time you're beginning to build your marriage. That can be your safe place. Let's not be afraid to have these conversations. Take the risk. Life is about risks anyway. Bring it up. If you're not able to bring it up, if you've tried to bring it up with your spouse, but it's not working, bring in a third party. Most of the times, it doesn't always work, but most of the times it works.
Mm-hmm.
And also remember, you are not alone. And that's why also we're emphasizing, if you can be part of a group of couples who are intentional on building their marriage, that's also another safe place. Number one, you find out you're not alone. Number two, also, you are able to be vulnerable with people that now you've gotten to know. And then number three, just to encourage you, there's an element of sometimes we feel like it's our fault. You do what you know how to, but at the end of the day, you cannot be responsible for the other person. They have to make the decision, even them, to choose to build your marriage. Did I leave anything out?
Yeah, I want another thing just to know that your spouse is not your enemy.
The enemy.
The enemy, yeah. The enemy is the force behind that, what is coming. But that spouse is not your enemy.
So fight that enemy, not your spouse.
Not fight your spouse.
So that's, yes.
Okay. Thank you so very much. This has been a really, really lovely conversation. And for those of you who may have joined us late, this is James and Chao Wanje, and they're my friends from Kenya, and they have written a book, Getting Married, Building Your Marriage Before It Begins. And because I have been doing this work, it's 8 years now that I've been doing marriage education. As soon as I saw this book, which they wrote, I really wanted to get it into the hands of everybody. And if you look in the comments in the following this video, you would see where you can get the book. There are 2 locations in Lagos that you can get the book, and there is one in Nairobi that you can get the book. And I'm going to look for the website of the Lagos book, the Nigerian bookstore, so that I'm told that you can also order from them online. But I said, if for any reason you are not able to get the book in your location, which means you are not in Nigeria or Kenya, just send me a message and I would let you know how you can get the book. So James and Chao, thank you so very much for
Thank you.
being with us this evening. It's amazing what technology is enabling us to do. You in
Yes.
Kenya and me in Nigeria, we've been able to join hands together to give guidance to some people. And folks who are
Yes.
listening to us, remember what James and Charles said in the beginning, which is what I have also, told many of you who have spoken to me, that things were rough in the beginning. The reason things are rough for most people in the beginning is because they were not aware of the things that we have discussed this evening, which
Yes.
is that primarily the husband and wife, they're coming from two separate places, and they never took time to consciously agree how they're going to go forward together. And we said it's never too late to actually have that conversation. Thank you, everyone, for giving us your
Thank you.
time. In about a fortnight, I'm going to be bringing another author, this time a Nigerian, to discuss the book Happily Whenever After. And the audience for that book are the people, who are waiting and waiting and who so dearly want to be married and who are not yet married. So make it a date with me again, as I'm going to bring another author to you, and we're going to look at another crucial part of marriage. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
James and Chow. It's been
Thank
really
you.
lovely having you here with me.
Thank you. Blessing.
All right, then. Good night, everyone. Thank you for listening to us. Remember, if you came by this broadcast and you are not yet following me, follow me, Modupe Ehirim, on Facebook and on Instagram at The Right Fit Marriage. My desire is for you to have a positive perspective on marriage and to be able to enjoy your marriage when you do get married, or if you are already married and you are not, if you're already married and you are not enjoying it, to begin to enjoy it. Have a restful evening, everyone. Good night.